Hello, my wonderful students. You're here because you want to become fluent in English, right? Well, in this video, I interview a fellow student of yours, Mustafa, who achieved a high level of fluency in a short period of time. He's going to share how he achieved this result, and he's going to share some tips and advice for you. Welcome back to Jforrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. Welcome, Mustafa. It's so wonderful having you here.
Hey, Jennifer, how are you? Thank you for inviting me.
I'm doing great. Absolutely. So why don't you tell everyone, when did you start studying English?
Okay, it was back in the day in 2020 when the COVID-19 hit the world. I started, learning English from scratch, from zero. And at the beginning, I had a teacher, but after 2 months, I started studying independently. So yeah, it was in 2020.
Okay, 2020 from zero.
From zero.
And at that time, what motivated you to start learning English?
Well, first of all, English is a dominant language. Yeah, once we started speaking fluently, we will have an opportunity to connect with the world and have a wide connection network. That's what really motivated me, talking to people from culturally diverse backgrounds. So yeah.
And in this short period of time, 2020, when you started from zero, today, what would you say your English level is, or how would you describe your fluency in English?
In terms of the IELTS exam, which is quite popular in many countries, I got a band 8 at the beginning of last year, and speaking it was like 8. But I would say I have made a lot of progress since then. So I would say it's pretty high. You could even say like I've reached the proficiency level, but it's still, hey, there is still a room for improvement. It's a lifelong learning. I cannot say I'm professional. It will never be. And it's all about learning continuously. That's what I think.
That's so true. And I say that to all my students, and I let them know that even I'm still improving my communication skills, and it is truly a lifelong process. So why don't you tell my students how you achieved such a high level of fluency in a short period of time? Did you have a secret process you followed, or what was your approach? What was your methodology to get these results?
Well, first of all, before embarking on this beautiful journey, I started eliminating all unnecessary distractions I had. First of all, social media. I only started using social media for educational purposes, like TikTok, not gonna happen. YouTube, okay, let's use that for educational purposes, like watching YouTubers, like you watching professional teachers and so forth. That's what I did. And also I started eliminating like my toxic environment. At that time, I used to have a toxic environment. I told myself, if I wanted to improve myself, why not eliminate and eradicate all unnecessary distractions. So that's what I did. After that, I also created a study area, which was like putting over like vibrant sticky notes on my walls and jotting down beautiful expressions, idiomatic language, phrasal verbs. I've sent you some photos. You could show them like to students. You believe it or not, it helped me to study for 6 to 12 hours a day. I became obsessed with the process. I had a study table, I had a study bedroom, and I would study continuously every single day. I spiced it up. I was not in a hurry to improve my language skills, but instead I enjoyed the process. I would visualize and picture my future. I would think about how many opportunities I would have if I reach this level. Okay, so let's study. So this is what really helped me to study, not only for many hours, but also to increase the quality of my language acquisition, I would even say.
It sounds like you had a very interesting approach, and obviously it kept you motivated for all those years. Now, you said you had to address your toxic environment. Can you explain, what do you mean by that? What did you consider toxic in your environment?
Yeah, I can elaborate on that. Like, imagine friends. Like, it would take me to say no to vacations. It would take me say no to like hangouts. It would take me to say no my friends. So I did have a toxic environment. Like, okay, let's go to parties. Okay, let's go to this and that. And I would have to say no to all of my friends because I really wanted to have a transformative change in my life. And then it took me to change my environment. And then you know what happened? I started surrounding me with educated and very high knowledgeable people. Like the people who would continuously improve their characters, the people who would continuously read books, the people who would continuously take their health seriously. And then I started feeling better about myself. All the elevated, complete emotions, positive emotions started coming to my life. I started feeling better, but before that, I was not. So it turns out I was being in a toxic environment. I mean, going to parties, doing this and that. But right now, you have no ideas. You have no idea about my environment. It's so clean. So for 4 years, I've been surrounded by very highly knowledgeable people. And I'm proud of myself, proud of my decision I made back in 2020. Yeah.
It's not an easy decision to make, for sure, when you want to make those positive changes in your life and you realize that you have to look at all areas of your life. So yes, you want to improve your English, but you had to look at your social life, your other habits in your daily life and how that impacted your studies. So it's great that you were able to do that. And you also mentioned that you visualized your future, you visualized the results. So when you saw yourself in the future as a fluent, confident English speaker, do you mind sharing, what were you doing? What were you doing with your English language skills in this visualization process?
Yes, we all go through ups and downs, but mostly downs. Life is not an easy path, so especially studying for 6 to 12 hours a day continuously without stopping, like without taking days off. At that time, I would picture myself in the future because I want to be somebody who could, like, I wouldn't say it's motivation, but I would love to say it like encouragement. I would love to encourage thousands of young people like me, because at that time I was isolated and I did not have somebody to like encourage me. You know what? It was all about internal encouragement, internal motivation. So I want to be somebody that would share my knowledge with the world and who will be able to encourage thousands of, if not millions of young people. Because nowadays, many of young people are losing themselves in mindless activities, like spending hours and hours on social media. So I would visualize my future and I would feel a lot of positive emotion and I would study for hours and hours. Talking about speaking, I would sit in front of the mirror and talk to myself like for 24/7, which is an exaggeration, but that's what I did. Drinking a cup of coffee and talking to myself is something that really helped me to increase the quality of my speaking. Yeah.
That's amazing that you did that. And I say that to my students all the time when they say, "Oh, Jennifer, I don't have anyone to speak with." I always say, well, you don't need another person. Yes. You can open your mouth and just speak. So would you say that was a large part of improving your speaking skills? And what else did you do to improve your speaking skills? Because this is an area that my students struggle with the most, their speaking skills.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I want to say something. People judge our language skills based on our speaking skills. Nobody's going to come to you and check your grammar. Nobody's going to come to you listening, reading, writing. They are extremely important, but the most important part is speaking. The pronunciation, talking beautifully, having communication skills, being able to talk with people in a respectful manner. that's the case, and it really motivated me. Yes, agree on. I used to talk myself. I did not have a partner because, as I had mentioned, I isolated myself from social media. How I was supposed to have a partner without being able to active user of like social media. So I would sit in my bedroom and I used to talk to myself like a lot because I enjoyed the process. I created a study area and I really liked it. Language should not be complicated. It should be interesting. It should be something that people enjoy learning. Yes.
And Mustafa, you've achieved such a high level of fluency, but I do want to ask you about this 6 to 12 hours a day, because that's a very long time. And I'm going to assume that my students watching this don't have 6 to 12 hours a day to study English. So how would you recommend that students who only have 1 hour or less a day can get real results with their English?
Well, we all think that we don't have time, but we have. On the way, when doing some ironing, when washing clothes, when washing the dishes, when we are eating something, we all have time. We could passively listen to something. That's what I used to do while doing ironing, while commuting to somewhere. I would listen to podcasts. Well, not specifically podcasts, but I would watch films. I would watch movies on the way. So by doing this, I would at least spend 2 hours passively listening to something in English. So we have time. So if somebody has like 1 hour, I think that person has to do some analysis. Do I have some time on the way? Do I have some time while eating? Because to some extent you have to be a bit selfish when educating yourself, instead of instead of instead of having lunch with your friends and gossiping. Be a little bit selfish, listen to something in English, and have your dinner or lunch like studying. Because look, once we become educated, once we become highly knowledgeable, and then we will start educating others. So it's okay to be selfish to some extent. Yeah.
That's a very good point. And for myself personally, it takes me about half an hour to do my hair and makeup in the morning. And it takes me about half an hour to prepare my lunch, eat, and clean up after my lunch. And I always make sure I do something educational, listening to a podcast or training on a specific topic during that time. So I'm able to learn and develop for 1 hour every single day that would have just been wasted time because I'm just doing my hair and makeup or eating. So it's a really smart strategy to find wasted time and turn it into productive time. And why don't you share a little bit about your sleep schedule? Did you have to wake up earlier or go to bed later, or how did you incorporate your sleep schedule with your learning schedule?
Oh, I had a very healthy sleeping schedule. I would go to bed at 8:30 p.m. around that time and wake up at 4 a.m. or 4:30 a.m. So I had a very healthy sleeping schedule. And then after waking up, I would immediately take a cold shower or go for running, because that really helped me to feel fresh before studying. And I would absolutely drink a cup of coffee. That's what I would do, because it was quiet. I would study in silence. Everybody was sleeping, but I was developing myself. This was also one element which helped me, get motivated and study continuously. Waking up earlier than everybody else and drinking coffee and starting my studies. Yep.
Well, it sounds like you found many different ways to add learning English to your daily routine. So that's great. Now, one thing I hear from my students a lot is that they've been learning for years and years, and they feel like they've gained a lot of vocabulary, gained a lot of grammar, But when they go to use it in a conversation, like we're having a conversation right now, their mind goes blank, they forget all their words, they're shy, they're nervous, and they're not able to communicate. Whereas right now you are communicating very successfully. So did you struggle with that? How did you overcome that? And how would you recommend that my students who are experiencing that issue can overcome that as well?
Well, there are two ways. Like there's a passive vocabulary and there's an active vocabulary. Well, in terms of active vocabulary, I learned vocab, as I had mentioned, by jotting down a lot of beautiful expressions and putting on my wall and deliberately practicing them. What I mean by that, I would sit in front of the mirror and I would take expression. Let's say people have different likes and dislikes. That's one, the expression, yeah? I would flexibly use it. Like people have different likes and dislikes when it comes to reading books. Yeah? Some people like different types of genres, while others like different types of genres. So by using great language chunks and deliberately practicing them in front of the mirror, I was able to actively use my vocab. And it's okay. It's okay to forget vocab. It's okay. It's all about the process. And it also comes down to confidence. Look, people should not be very shy in front of people because everybody's going through something. Everybody's learning this language. How can you be shy when learning language? It's very bad. So you have to first of all tell yourself, hey, everybody's going through. It's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to forget vocab. And it's okay to feel embarrassed from time to time. And in this way, you build confidence. That's what I used to do. I went through a lot. It's not okay. It's not easy to wake up at the same time, go to bed at the same time. It was not easy to study for 6 to 12 hours a day. It was not easy to feel embarrassed when I was giving lectures. It was not easy. But by learning from my mistakes, I learned. And I am still learning. I sometimes cannot use vocab, but that's okay. It's, as I had mentioned, it's a lifelong learning. So yeah.
So you embrace the fact that mistakes are normal, you expect mistakes, and you actively practice, and through that practice, you're able to gain confidence. Now, imagine if a student watching this could only do one thing this week to improve their English fluency. If they could only do one thing, what would you recommend they do?
Listening and speaking are connected. They are both connected. The more you listen to something, the better you get at speaking. But it doesn't mean the fact that you shouldn't speak. You have to speak. And I'm 100% sure that student has time. On the way, you could talk to yourself. If you are feeling embarrassed, just put on your earphones and start talking so that people know you're talking with somebody. Yes? Before going to bed, talk to yourself. But what I mostly recommend is listening to something that you are actually interested in. As I had mentioned, listening and speaking are connected. I used to watch movies. I used to watch TV series like Friends. Yep, like 10 seasons. I used to watch Friends like for hours and hours. And I was even like, I even forgot the time was flying, you know? So I watched things based on my curiosity. So once again, listening and speaking are connected with each other. They are not too academic. You don't have to study a lot of grammar. You don't have to sit down and do a lot of tests. The more you listen to something, the better you get at speaking. But also talk to yourself.
Very great advice. Thank you so much for sharing your story with everyone. And why don't we end by, you can tell everyone, what are you doing now with your English fluency? So now that you have achieved these results, what are you doing? How are you using your English skills on a regular basis? And also please share how my students can connect with you.
All right, so right now I'm doing a lot of teaching online. I'm about to start my own YouTube channel, which is going to happen this year. But right now I'm doing a lot of teaching online on Telegram. If you search IELTS with Mustafa, double F in Mustafa, you can find me. Apart from that, we have started a very gigantic project teaching over 500 students in Uzbekistan. It's both offline and online. That's what we are doing. And recently, I made a visit to Arabic countries like Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Believe it or not, my language skills, oh my God, helped massively. I was able to have a wide connection network, talking to local Arabs, talking to millionaires. I'm gonna tell one story. There was a man sitting in a hospital. So I struck up a conversation with him. Hey, how are you? Can I have a talk? I'm from Uzbekistan. So by showing my emotions, my intonation, I was able to talk with him and get his number. It turned out he was the CEO of the company which manufactures robots and motorcycles. What I mean by that? The better you speak, the more connections you will have. So right now, I am working on myself in every possible way, doing a lot of teaching, preparing for my uni, and so yeah.
Well, that's so inspiring. And I love to hear how you're not just an English learner, you're an English speaker. You're out there, you're talking to strangers. You approached me to have this interview on my channel. You're using your English, you're using it to gain connections, to interact with people, to learn. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I know it will motivate and inspire all my students to keep going, keep pushing to improve their English skills. So thank you again, Mustafa.
Jennifer, thank you for having me. And I am 100% that it's going to pay off. If students work on themselves, it's going to pay off. It's really going to be successful. After 50, 60 years, they are going to look back and smile. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Did you enjoy this interview? Would you like to see more casual conversations, interviews with other people who can share tips and advice with you? If you do, then put more interviews in the comments below. And of course, make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And I have another interview with the famous polyglot Steve Kaufman, who has learned over 20 languages. You can watch the interview here. He shares a lot of valuable tips and advice just for you. So watch it right now.